Even on the first date, men would reveal that they take Viagra or Levitra or even Cialis. I know you're like, oh, what? How does that happen, Emily? Well,
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I'm happy to welcome Jim Griffeth and Emily Liu back to our show today, the intimacy and sex coaches who teach couples after 40, after 50, and beyond, our age group here, how to have just great connection, an intimate connection, and great sex. So thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you,
thank
Silke.
you for having us back.
Well, I will link to our first two segments, which were how to have difficult conversations to get you to greater intimacy. And one of the most difficult conversations that couples have at this time in life, especially, is sexual dysfunction, specifically erectile dysfunction. Not only is it something that is shameful for men, but women feel it's their fault. They're not desirable. There's so many issues associated with it that are never talked about. And I want to thank you as a couple to come here and to discuss this, to shed some light on how to handle the ED talk.
Yeah, well, I think that, when we talk about ED, we're talking about a physiological, and sometimes it's connected to psychological, but it's a physiological phenomenon, and it's highly correlated with aging. So, the research that's been done, if you're 40, then 40% chance of 40-year-olds will have ED, up to 70% chance if you're 70. So it's a real easy thing to remember. So it's a natural part of aging, and there's so much emotion that's wrapped up in it. There's so much guilt and shame, just as you said, and we have to ask ourselves, where is that coming from when this is the norm, and we should expect ED. So it's it seems pretty clear that it's the media, that the messages that we get bombarded with daily, about what constitutes a real man, and the idea of having athletic sex or whatever. It is something that we hear from the media. We see it in porn. These unfortunately are the ways that we learn about sex. And there is no sex 101 for men or women, for that matter. We really have no way to understand what great sex really is. And everybody has their own idea about that. And ours is that great sex is really establishing an extraordinary intimate connection, and that will naturally and organically lead to beautiful things happening in the bedroom.
So the first thing you would do with a couple then is really change, I don't know if it's change their mindset or certainly evolve the mindset about what great sex is.
Exactly.
Yes, because certain couples, just to give you an example, there's a man we've been working with who believes that great sex is simultaneous orgasms. Mm. Somewhere along the way, he learned that is what great sex is all about. So it's performance oriented. And when you don't have the emotional, intimate connection where you're sharing everything about yourself, like we had discussed in the last segment, you're not feeling that closeness. Mm-hmm. So that closeness and that safety is what creates the safety of just allowing the body to do what it wants to do in the moment without the agenda of having a climax.
Right. So this is not a sport. There are no goals here, whether it's erection or orgasm. These are things that happen, and they happen maybe sometimes and more often for others, but they aren't the goal. That's not the end. The end is the beautiful and sacred intimacy that you can establish in this process. It's and when you can adopt that frame of mind, the way that gets reflected in having sex is it becomes a complete immersion in how do you focus on, as a man, how do I focus on the pleasure of my partner? And really, that's where I get my satisfaction from. And it is also the case that by doing that I get great pleasure myself. But But it is really the focus shifts from, okay, I got to do this position or that position, whatever choreography might be in your mind that equals great sex, throw all that out the window and just go with the moment and be present with your partner.
Well, in opening the conversation, there's going to be two types of people listening, but basically, women who are, whose partner has ED and they're either managing it or she is feeling guilty or, oh my God, he doesn't want me anymore. And then men who are experiencing it and don't, and maybe are avoiding sex because they don't think they can perform. Talking to those viewers, that type of issues, how do you advise starting that conversation when it really is one-sided at that point? It's not a couple's thing.
So during the dating process, I was actively dating for 2 years before I met Jim. And oftentimes, even on the first date, men would reveal that they take Viagra or Levitra or even Cialis. I know you're like, oh, what? How does that happen, Emily? Well, as part of my history, like, okay, how did you get into business? And prior to becoming an author and doing this in this place of relationship coaching, for 27 years, I worked for Pfizer in sales. And one of the drugs I sold was Viagra. So somehow that would get worked. It's like, yeah, Viagra, I used to talk about sex, every day for 2 years. And people our age, I'm 58, I would say like people our age, it's not a big deal if men have a little bit of ED. It's natural course of aging. And I totally get it. Mm-hmm. So because I've given them like, oh, it's not a big deal. They just want to share with me that they do take, oh yes, I can get it up, but it just helps me to maintain it. It's like, okay, no big deal. So it's the energy through which the woman is saying to the man, like, if this should be the case, I'm totally okay with it, and we'll work with
safety.
You. Yes,
yeah,
safety
really
to reveal. So even on first and second dates or fourth or fifth date, yeah, and even people I've only been on the phone calls with have even said, yeah, I use one of those drugs, us guys over 60 or whatever. So the women have to create that safety. And then I have a thought about what women should say if they're feeling unattractive. Mm-hmm. So what has worked for me in the past in saying these thoughts that are in your mind about yourself or about another person, I externalize the voice. Is it okay if I share something with you? I'm really afraid to share this, but I want to name this. There's a voice inside of me that just says, like, wow, he doesn't seem to be approaching me anymore for sex. And is it because I'm no longer attractive to him? I mean, sometimes I do feel fat, but I just want to know what I can do to help to increase the foreplay so that I feel attractive. I don't know. Can you help me out with this part of me? So you're actually like vulnerably speaking for this other entity inside of you. It's not all of you. It's like, help me with this. And men, you guys love to help us, right? Give us a problem, we'll help you. Can you help me with this voice?
I love that. Yeah, ask him for help. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, can you talk to this voice inside of me? Because otherwise, if I don't have clarity, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole of feeling like I'm not attractive enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not beautiful anymore. Yeah, I know. I gained 10 pounds since COVID started, and I know I need to lose that. But I wonder how he's feeling about that, and whether or not he's willing to help me to shed some of these pounds. So just you share from like this vulnerable, heart-led energy. And I know, like, when I share from that energy, Jim is just like, oh, honey, okay, let me hear more about this part.
Let me hear more. That's a good thing. Women love to hear that. Tell me more. Well, yeah. What about a man who is really feeling shameful? And I use that word, just because that's how it's described. Not because there should be any sort of shame on this at all, but someone who's feeling insecure and shameful about not being able to get it up.
Part of it is it's time to let go of expectations of our sexual performance that we were able to achieve in our 20s or 30s, and to understand that sex is something completely new for us now. A woman's body is truly a wonderland, and it's just an absolute joy to provide sort of this safe, loving environment where you can experience the pleasures that offers, that the woman's body has, for her and for me. And if you can do this mind shift, and this is the hard thing for guys, right? Because we're so hardwired to think that, oh yeah, it's all about, performance and reaching a goal. And if you can let go of that frame, if you can let go of that sort of core belief and start to look at it as an exploration into the unknown, where the exploration involves, what one author called slow sex. It really is about experiencing sensuality and sexual pleasures that don't require penetration. They don't require orgasm. They're just wonderful in and of their own selves.
Yeah. And books and videos, and I think John Gray may have also said this in one of his videos or books, where great sex for men is about watching her fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, that definitely is a John Gray thing as well. Yeah, he said it on our show. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and if men have not had the experience of witnessing a woman's fulfillment with the way he gives pleasure, he cannot equate that. That's great sex. You mean if I watch her respond to the way I pleasure her, that if I watch her go crazy, that's actually going to give me fulfillment? So if a man hasn't really had that kind of experience, then he really doesn't understand what great sex is. He thinks great sex is about the orgasm. So it's not his fault. And so in terms of a woman really releasing into her fulfillment, it starts with deep emotional connection or just feeling safe with one another, just sharing more parts of yourself. So everything goes back to radical honesty and vulnerability.
Approaching it from that standpoint in a safe way is really something that has been very effective for us.
And it's also about being comfortable with talking about sex with each other. Can you talk about sex over breakfast? Can you integrate after a sexual experience to say, this was amazing. This part when you did XYZ was just threw me over the top. And the next time I would love to see more of ABC. So the more you could get comfortable talking about sex and what happened to you in that particular moment, the more you realize that great sex isn't just about an erection. There's so much more.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one other question then. Again, for the man listening who is struggling with how he feels about this or the erection, everything you just said makes great sense. But if it hasn't been brought up yet, does he bring that up to his partner, to his wife? What should he say to where he still feels manly and not shameful?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Silke. Because as we said earlier, there's so much shame and sort of guilt and feeling of inadequacy that's all wrapped up in this for so many men. And I think having that candid conversation about this is something that in and of itself is healing. So just simply talking about it is therapeutic in its own right. And it loses a lot of its energy just by simply being revealed and discussed openly. Yeah. So there's an opportunity right there just simply by talking about it. And then I think it opens the door for the couple and for the man to lead, to say, I really want to discover other ways for us to have pleasure. I want to understand, other things that perhaps we haven't explored yet. And there's such a rich tapestry of choices there that don't involve penetration, or that maybe involve some form of penetration, but it's not something that that requires the same kind of erection.
Yeah. And I think from a woman's standpoint, I would be very receptive to that sort of vulnerability if that is expressed towards me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and the question is the man courageous enough? Because it requires courage to be this
Right.
vulnerable, because vulnerability is not weakness, courage. Does he have the courage to say, I'm feeling a little insecure about how I've been performing in bed? Is it possible for us to talk about this?
And the first thing out of his mouth should be, and it's not about you.
Yeah.
It is physiology, right? I mean, this is a natural part of aging. So, we were talking earlier about the emotional impact that this has on women. It's very significant that women can feel responsible for this or somehow take this on themselves. And to be able to sort of tackle that and free her from any kind of sense that this is about her. It's not. It's just physiology. It's aging, and to age gracefully, we accept these things.
Yeah.
And we figure out how to make the most of what we do have.
Exactly. Well, guys, we're at the end. Guys, couldn't talk to you forever. This was an important topic. I'll be interested to see the comments that we get on this. We will link to all of our segments that we've done. Make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. I'll have all that in the show notes, including the cheat sheet on identifying your parts and having these conversations, and your book, of course, Emily. It's great. Again, Climax: Why Great Leaders Need Love Affairs. It's terrific read. So, if there's anything else that you want to say before we sign off today.
Well, we just encourage people to start to educate themselves on how to understand these parts, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions that get in the way of real intimacy and radical honesty and vulnerability. So I invite you to begin to learn the internal family systems process through reading the fictional story in my book. And also we have a cheat sheet that's going to help you to start the process of radical honesty and vulnerability so that you could achieve that deep connection and great sex that is elusive for so many couples. And there's a formula to getting to that level of deep connection that so many of us in midlife desire.
And if ED is a part of your experience, I'd encourage you to really think about how to turn this into the most positive possible conversation and intimacy that can come from that. And it is a wonderful opportunity to just improve the level of great sex in the bedroom.
I like that. Well, on that note, Jim, Emily, thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to more conversations with you on Second Act TV. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.